Hello and welcome to the next episode of my Learn With Me Hydrasynth series. This is episode 13, Mod Matrix Part 2. So first, what is Learn With Me? Learn With Me is a series where you join me as I try and get the best out of a synthesizer end to end. Today I'm looking at the ASM Sound Machine's Hydrasynth Explorer. This is a shrunk down with reduced control and keyboard version of the original Hydrasynth. It also lacks the ribbon controller, but it retains polyphonic aftertouch and the same sound engine. So far, I've talked about my impressions of the synthesizer and its build quality. We've listened to some presets, we've looked at the architecture, and we've discussed in moderate detail the oscillators, the mutants, which are audio effects on the oscillators, the filters, the envelopes, the LFOs, and we started talking about the mod matrix. But in talking about the mod matrix, we only really discussed modulations from the obvious modulation sources on the panel. There are other modulation sources which may be of interest, and that's what we're going to look at today. So first, let's make ourselves an init patch, and let's add some interest to that patch. So firstly, I'm going to shape this. Let's make it a sort of plucky sound, nice and easy. So next I'm going to make an envelope for the filter. I'll make it maybe a little bit shorter, but I might have the same release time as I have decay time. Might have a longer attack though. Then I'm going to route that through. Close this up a bit. Attack's a bit long. So, first I'd like to do something with velocity. Now, I have the capacity here to set some velocity modulation to the amount of envelope 2 applied to the amp, e.g. I can also set how much of this envelope 1 is applied here based on velocity, which is already interesting. So there's already a little bit of expression going on there, but I think I'd like to bring in some more. One way I could do that is maybe by adding a mutant. So let's have a look at what mutants we have here. Maybe this PWM thing? So as we increase this amount, I feel like it's brightening the sound. So what I might like is for the velocity to increase that. Now you may note that there's no velocity button on the panel because velocity is in the mod matrix. LFO5 of the panel modulation sources is the last one on the list. So what I can do is press LFO5 mutant, and then I'm already further along the list and I can go find velocity on. What I would like to adjust of this parameter, let's move down, is not the ratio, but the depth. And I would like the depth to go up, let's say by 50. So that's the onset velocity. So let me press lightly. See what happens if I increase that more. So we already have some slight timbre variation because of that. Maybe I want the resonance to shift. I turned that while I was still on this page, so now I've made it just the resonance instead. Let me go and correct that, hopefully. Let's go. Mod matrix, mutant, depth. Let me exit that now. So now let me listen to the resonance. So as before, I can use this LFO routing. I can turn the resonance knob to select it, and I can go back up here and I can select this, let's set this to onset velocity, and I can adjust the level here. Don't want too much of it. Sounds okay. Next thing that I was thinking is also using velocity. What about the release velocity? Maybe when you release the note fast, we would like the decay to happen more rapidly. So there are a few ways that we could do that. In any case though, I think we know that we're going to want velocity off, that's release velocity, to modulate an envelope. Whoops. I keep doing that. I need to navigate down before pressing that button. So release velocity is going to go to a parameter of this envelope. What parameters do we have? Attack, decay, sustain, release. So what I can do therefore is I can decrease the release. Too fast. I think that's about right. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other envelope 1, which I'm also using. So here, go all the way through to velocity off, scroll down, envelope 1, we want to adjust release time, and probably a similar value. Just hearing the sound here and just wanted to tweak a little. So next parameter that might be interesting, I think, is to use polyphonic aftertouch, maybe on the drive. So let's see how it sounds. So interesting that drive has a timbral shift. So what I might try and do then is have the drive increase, but correspondingly have the amp decrease, so as we don't really hear an increase in overall level. So what does that correspond to? That corresponds to this going over here. We wanted to adjust the drive. And again, not actually LFO5. We want to go through to a parameter. This is polyphonic aftertouch. And now we need to tweak the value. So this is increasing the volume, and now I'm going to add another modulation, which is again going to be polyphonic aftertouch, but this time it's going to go to the amp section, and we are going to adjust the level, and the level is going to come down. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's have a look at the mutant now. What's the feedback sound like? it might be interesting to increase the feedback amount as we press the note harder. That gives us a little more distortion. So let's go LFO5 to mutant and then change that to polyphonic aftertouch. And let's look for the parameter that we want, feedback. Okay, so that gives us a little more movement. Having played with this a bit, I think I'm going to extend these parameters a little. So that's going to go up to about 8 seconds, about 5 seconds. This is going to go up to about 4 and stay around 3. So hopefully you can see I'm already starting to develop a bit of expressiveness in this patch. One last thing I think I'd like to experiment with is the mod wheel. So first note, I've mentioned this in the past, that there is a default routing for vibrato to the mod wheel through a, I guess you could call it hidden LFO. So this is vibrato amount. I set it to 0. So now it doesn't do anything. When I set that up, this is the number of semitones. That's an octave either way vibrato. So vibrato is set to 0. And now I'm going to do something with this mod wheel. What timbrally might be interesting to shift? Well, it might be interesting to bring in some noise and to close the filter. So let's just see what that sounds like. So that gives us at least a concept of how far we'd like to go with that. And I can do the same thing here, and we can scroll through to mod wheel. And we want to adjust the mixer section, and we're going to adjust the noise volume. So I can leave the mod wheel up, and then that adjusts the maximum. So I think the cutoff is in a decent place on its own, so I probably don't want to adjust that. So what I may try and do is adjust the amount that the envelope 1 adjusts the filter envelope when we adjust this. I think that's probably a better parameter to tweak here. So that's done. Let's go to the next one. This is going to filter. And again, not LFO5. I'm just saving myself scrolling. I actually want mod wheel. I'm going to adjust one amplitude amount, and this is going to go down. Maybe I need a bit more noise by default. Just a little bit of noise, and then the amount of noise that gets added can be lesser. So, we have some quite extreme timbre variation. I think if I had an expression pedal connected, I would rather it be an expression pedal than the mod strip, because when I'm playing polyphonically, that is not always readily accessible to me. Let me add some effects, play for a little bit, and then I think that completes our look at this section. Obviously, there is more depth to it, and when I come back and do some real sound design here, I'm going to dig in a little more detail. Anyway, first, pre-effects. Try distortion. So you can say this is parallel distortion. It might be interesting to have the mod wheel adjust the wet dry as well. So when the mod wheel is low, I think I'd like the wet dry higher. And as the mod wheel goes up, I'd like the wet dry lower. So let's go from here to here. And the parameters, wet dry. I would like the parameter to adjust negatively, and the thing that I'm using to adjust it is the mod wheel. Quite interesting. Let's continue. And let's add some delay. Maybe this delay, relatively short, quite a bit of feedback. Let's add a little bit of these things we haven't really spoken about. Sounding interesting. Now for reverb, I think a hall is going to work well for us here. Let's listen to it fully wet so we can set the tone. Okay, now let's set the wet dry. I'm interested again in having the mod wheel increase the wet dry on the reverb. So let's go LFO5 to reverb, and I'm going to set the wet dry and change that to be actually the mod wheel. We want to be increasing it, so let's try it out. It's a bit much. Nice. Finally, let's go to post effects. What might be good here? Maybe tremolo. Let's set it. Pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do now is imagine that this is 3 different patches. I'm going to play it with this mod wheel minimum, then in the middle, and then maximum. Consider that I could have even used the mod wheel to adjust the depths of other modulations, so it could be much more extreme than this. Let's play an E. Now let's set this to the middle, and let's play in F. Now let's set the mod wheel to maximum, and let's play in G. So quite a pleasing sound. I wasn't really working with any particular focus here, but you can see how an understanding of the possibilities without going into using any of these LFOs, any of these envelopes. This is all just aftertouch on note on velocity, note off velocity, and mod wheel allows us to make a pretty diverse patch. Now consider bringing the LFOs in. Now consider bringing the envelopes in. Now consider using all of the mutants. Now consider adding macros. I'm sure you can imagine that there is a lot of scope for pretty extreme sound design if that's what you want. There is also a lot of scope for making classic sounds. Overall, I can see there's a lot of opportunities in this synthesizer. The main negative that I've experienced is it handles the complexity about as well as you can imagine, given the interface. I don't think they could have designed it much better. Having said that, the complexity is high. So in some regards, I find it quite difficult to perform live on this while trying to tweak the sounds. So this is definitely a synth where you design your sounds in advance, you make your macro controls, you make your expression pedal controls, you make your mod wheel controls. And then with all of that in place, you can perform it. And I think it has the complexity, especially these step sequenced LFOs, to make an entire performance in a single patch. So I'm looking forward to digging deeper, and I hope you will join me in that process. But most importantly, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me today, and goodbye.